good morning, and a very warm welcome to you once again to another episode of Safari Live here in Djuma in South Africa, the greater Kruger National Park. My name is Steve Falconbridge, and once again I'm joined by Seb Rombi on the camera. And we are out on this beautiful cloudy morning of 21 degrees Celsius and 74 degrees Fahrenheit. And please, ladies and gentlemen, feel free to comment, send the hashtag Safari Live through to Twitter, and follow us on the YouTube stream and let us know what you would like to see. Last night, we were quite fortunate. Myself, Scott, and a few of the other, including Taylor, a few of the other staff, went out onto quarantine and we found the Nkuhuma pride. They had killed an impala, or what was left of an impala when we got there, and we managed to spend some time with them, getting to know them, seeing how nice or how fit that young cub is looking compared to the last time I saw her. And then we left them on the way to Vuyatela Dam, and from there I believe some of the viewers have been watching and saw them on the dam cam around 11 o'clock last night South African time, and they then moved off in a northerly direction. So myself and Seb are super keen to find the Nkuhumas for you. We are coming up towards the northern boundary. We'll check the Buffelshoek cut line to see if they've crossed, and if they have not, we will make small concentric circles until we pick up on their tracks. Okay, so Herbie is back and Taylor is out this morning on a bushwalk, and Scott is out on drive as well, and we're going to go over to him for his good morning chat.
Hello everyone, welcome on board. My name is Scott Dyson and I'm teamed up with the Big Easy Mkize Senzo, and we are very, very excited for what the morning holds, because we left some tracks of Thandi, a leopardess, traveling with her young cub on kind of heading in the opposite direction of another set of her tracks, which means that she, in my opinion, made a kill somewhere, walked back to collect the cub, and then back again on that same trail in order to take the cub from where she had stashed it to where she had made the kill. Now, I'm guessing that, I know that it's going to be tricky for us to follow up, but the good news is that Taylor's out on bushwalk this morning. Herbie's back. Oh, I don't know if you guys saw that scrubhead charged us. It must have been rabid. Let's get out of here. Just running down the road straight towards us. And as I was saying, that's the good news, is that Taylor and Herbie will be able to head into this area and follow up on foot. But what I'm going to do in the meantime is just check another road where she could have popped out on had she have continued on her direction of movement, and that will be very useful in helping Herbie and Taylor fine-tune and pinpoint where in fact she may be. So exciting plans. Who knows what we may bump into along the way. There's been so much leopard activity here on Djuma the last few weeks. We've been incredibly fortunate, and furthermore we've actually been fortunate in finding the leopards. It's one thing if they're here, but finding them is the actual tricky part. Giraffe girl, I'm happy that you are excited. You said, yay, let's find Thandi and cub. And it is certainly something that excites all of us here too. I'm so relieved that she actually came back onto Djuma. She was literally stashing the cub right on the eastern boundary, and she could have gone either way depending on where she made a kill. So we've got lucky, and that she's still on our property. Forgive me, I'm trying to keep my eye on the road for any tracks. It's very tricky spotting tracks when it's still dark. Even though I've got the headlights of the vehicle, it requires some slow going. Very good. Well, it's not just myself who's struggling to work out where some big... see how his quest for the Nkuhumas is going.
Thank you, Scotty. Yes, we have just about to reach our northern Firebreak or northern cut line with Buffelshoek. There it is over there. And we have got the spotlights out. We've got our eyes peeled because the vegetation is very thick at the moment. We need to take it very carefully and very slowly. But we have got our nose to the ground to keep our eyes open for these wonderful lions, which I would like to show to you because that impala really didn't do much in the way of satisfying those lions last night. We got there once it had been completely dismembered, and we had individual lions around eating what looked like legs and hip bones, and there was nothing left whatsoever. And I'm pretty sure that those lions will still be hungry, and one small impala definitely does not fill. I think they were all there last night, if I remember, 12 individuals, if I'm not mistaken. But I think what the funniest part of last night is that some hyena moved into the area, 2 hyena, and from about 80 meters or so, one of the large lioness charged and continued to charge, chasing that hyena all over the place. And it was quite comical to see, and yet the brazen hyena came back again and was chased and charged again. Such is the respect these lioness have for hyena, and I believe the hyena were also seen on the dam cam. They think by following the lions around they will get some scraps. All they were left last night was some stomach contents. Even the intestines and the entire stomach itself was gone, and the lions squeezed out the rumen out of the intestines before munching on that. Isn't that a wonderful thought? But nothing went to waste. I don't even think the lions left that impala's hooves behind. We didn't find a skull, so I'm assuming that it wasn't a male, because I'm sure there would have been some horns. Dina, we are definitely looking for buffalo as well, and I have a feeling, considering the direction with which those unkuhumas came from the south and right up north, they came into the area of where the buffalo had moved. So we've come a little bit further east, or should I say west, to then loop around a bit more east where the buffalo were last seen. Because, you know, just like the night before, the buffalo came in, and as they came in, lo and behold, the unkuhuma pride was in our area as well straight away. And then last night, same story, buffalo moving through and unkuhumas following, well, not very close by, but considering the buffalo were at Vuyatela Dam the day before, I'm sure they'll pick up on their scent and possibly follow one, because a buffalo is definitely more in the line of enough food for those ravenous beasts. We've just got to check very carefully the Firebreak. Ryan from Texas would like to know what the purpose of the flashlight is. The flashlight is for us to see animal reflection and eyes. I can see quite clearly now in the bush, but right now it's for the road. I want to make sure that if there are any tracks of these lions crossing from this side to that side, this is our northern boundary, and we can't traverse in this area here called Buffelshoek. If they have crossed, then our chase of the lions will be over. Yes, where there's no need for us to inform the animals of our presence. They are quite relaxed to the vehicle. This is purely a means of us being able to see them. Last night we were watching them with the spotlight, and they can see beautifully without any light, and they saw the hyenas approaching without any light. So it would have been marvelous if we'd been on film last night with some IR. We would have probably got some insane footage. But alas, that is how it works with live TV. You are out when you are out, and things happen in the moment. Just going to have a little listen. So I know Scott is having a little bit of signal issues. Just having a little listen now, but he's also going to pick up Herbie and Taylor and drop them sort of in the area of Thandi and Cub, because as we all know, Herbie is a master tracker, and he's just got back from leave, and I have a very strong feeling he's going to be very keen to try and find that Cub and Thandi. Looking forward to saying hello to him. I didn't see him this morning. With the bushes just coming alive, birds are calling. A white-browed scrub robin calling in the background. Cape turtle dove. Time to turn off the lights. Okay, this is the perfect time of day to now I can actually see the ground, where before, when we came out, it was invisible. Lots of tracks of hyena that we came past already. Nothing in the way of lion has yet crossed our path, but we need to keep a very close eye to the ground because these lions can be very sneaky and they've been known to tiptoe over a boundary. It's amazing how 12 animals can just disappear. It always amazes me that. But a pride of lions is not the hardest number of animals to track. I think Scott was talking last night. One of the viewers asked him what's the easiest animal to track, and by far the easiest animal is a herd of buffalo. All you have to do is follow the smell and the flies emanating off of the dung that they deposit. They're just a moving manure machine, which is very important for the ecosystem. And I have a feeling, well, I'm pretty sure lions have no difficulty at all following buffalo because they will put their nose to the ground and just follow the smell. And if I can follow the smell, just the smell of buffalo, I'm pretty sure that the Unkuhumas will have no difficulty. So we're going to keep on our northern boundaries. Some hyena tracks there. You can hear a Swanston spurfowl calling off to the left here. So Voyatella Dam area is just over towards our right hand side. So if the lions did come directly north from the dam, we're kind of in the area now where we'd expect to see them cross. The wind was coming from the north last night, the northwest. So in my experience, Scott doesn't seem to agree with me too much in this fact, but we all understand and have our own beliefs and experience. And if the wind is coming from the north, sort of west, so northeast, from that direction, I would expect the lions to move in this sort of direction, to cut across the wind, and then as soon as they pick up on the scent of any other animal, then they'll move in the direction that animal is in. But, Scott and I were having a little discussion last night, and he thinks that it is nonsense what I was saying, but that is his opinion. I have seen it with my own eyes, but yet he is also very good at finding animals, so you cannot judge. It's an old lion track there, but very, very old, in the sand. Oi, there we go. There's a lion track. Well, they have crossed right here, folks. What a pity. What a pity. Track of at least one individual there. I'm just going to have a little look around, see if there's more than one that has crossed. Okay, so I've only got a track over there of one individual. Ground is quite hard over here, so it's quite difficult to see too many more. But what I've got there is kind of like a slipping, sliding track. Can you see it here, Seb? It's not very clear. But there's the back pad. Am I in the right frame here? There's the back pad there, and there's the front toes. That's a track going in that direction. Ground is very, very hard after the rain. Okay, so I'm gonna. Oh, there's definitely the youngster over there, and the whole pride seems to have crossed over here, folks. So that is very, very unfortunate. It is likely that they could go in and come back again if they're hunting, but there is a dam further up north here, so who knows if they went further up there to drink. But that is the way it works. That is how the cookie crumbles out here. And we are going to continue on another route. I'll keep going along the Firebreak here, or the cut line, should I say, to see if they do come back again, because you never know, we could be lucky. It just seems to be the case that these lions like to come in after we go off air. They're a little bit camera shy, perhaps. A little bit camera shy. Okay, so I believe Taylor is up and at 'em with Herbie on bushwalk, so let's go over there to say good morning.
Good morning, good morning. The sun is just dawning. We're out on bushwalk today, and it's a beautiful morning. The cloud cover is thick in the sky, but it is also lovely and cool. And look who's back. It's Herbie. And then, of course, I'm Taylor. And David, for the third time, how lucky am I, is on Game Drive. He's not on Game Drive, he's on camera with us because we're on bushwalk. Now, we're very excited this morning. We've got lots and lots of plans. I know Scotty D will be happy that we're out now because we are going to try and help him find Tundi and her cub, which is pretty cool. So we are going to be doing a little bit of marching first thing this morning. So we're basically going to head towards central Drakensberg junction, where Scott has left us a trail in the sand as to where those tracks were last seen. And then hopefully from there, it won't be too long before we manage to find them. Now, because it is so thick and around that area, you can imagine on vehicle driving around, probably going to miss quite a bit. But we're here, and we're going to help you, Scotty. We're going to help you get that leopard. Shall we keep going? I suppose I'm saying that we've got to walk, and then it's going to take us ages. Right, so we're going to march. Herbie's got his walking shoes on. He's fresh from leave. He's ready to get going. I haven't seen this man in such a long time, so I'm very excited to be tracking with the Leopard Master. So off we go through the herd of impala. Scott is also still searching for Tundi. Let's go see where he is.
Yes, we are. We're continuing our kind of perimeter check ahead of where we last had her tracks, just to make sure she hasn't actually crossed further west through this block, and it doesn't appear that she has. So we are slowly narrowing down the options of where she could be. And I can't wait for Taylor and Herbie to get onto that trail. And also, like Steve and Taylor, are quite excited to have Herbie back, and looking forward to spending some more time with him on foot. He's an absolute wizard when it comes to tracking, and I'm feeling confident that this cat is in the bag. It's just a matter of when. So I'm continuing to dangle my head over the side just to make sure there's no more tracks. Another reality, I mean, it's all kind of just a theory at the moment that she does have a kill, and even if this theory is correct, there's a chance that she may have killed something big that was difficult to hoist up a tree, or maybe she just, whatever she killed, she didn't hoist up a tree and may have been stolen by a hyena. So, or who knows, maybe even another male leopard. So, it's important just to check very carefully in case they have moved away from this area. So that is what I am doing. It's a pity about the Nkuhuma pride crossing out, but like Steve says, there is a chance that maybe they'll come back. Jocelyn, you'd like to know how often do cheetah come into the park? Well, if you're referring to Djuma as the park, then not very often. But the Sabi Sands as a whole is home to cheetah. There are some areas of the Sabi Sand with big open clearings. We don't really have areas like that. So the cheetah, not that there are many that do live in and frequent the Sabi Sands, tend to spend time in areas that are more open and better suited to them. When last did we have cheetah here? Whew. I don't know. I'm not even convinced there have been any sightings of cheetah on Djuma in the going over 3 months of me being here. but occasionally we get pleasantly surprised. I actually had cheetah not far from where we are here. Two cheetah actually, but that was many years ago. They actually walked straight through this area. And I'm told that Tristan may have seen one in January this year. Which is January. It's pronounced weirdly. If any of you are wondering what January is. Okay, I'm going to hop out here quickly and just check for any tracks of where any thirsty beasts may have come to this little waterhole. Let's see if there's anything exciting here. Hyenas. Waterbuck. No little leopard toes. The tricky thing with checking waterholes like this, especially when they're quite full, is that you tend to find that the water goes up quite high, and that means the animals can drink with their feet on solid ground, which makes it difficult to actually see tracks. But there's this kind of thin layer of softish mud, where if the animals were to come down, we may just see some toe marks. Important always just to keep an eye around and not be too fixated on whatever it is you're looking for. That's the kind of number one rules when on foot. Try and remember that there are other beasts, not just what you are looking for. Okay, no sign of anything there. So what I'm going to do is continue on to the last set of tracks that we had, and I might even just take a short little walk, because I don't know if I can wait for Herbie and Taylor to get here, so I might do a little short exploration walk. They may be very close to the road, and we're going to continue on with that plan and send you back to Steve to see how he is getting along.
Thank you, Scotty. Nothing to report so far, apart from the fact that it is a wonderful morning, and Seb is really excited that there is a lot of cloud cover. We had a little look around there still, and it seems like the entire pride crossed. They moved down from here. We're going back into Djuma, and these are the tracks in the road, on Mvubu Road. And Vuyatela Dam is just that direction, and the tracks have coming along here, and they've disappeared into the vegetation there before cutting out again. So as I assumed in the direction they would be moving because of the wind, they've kind of moved in that sort of direction. So probably unsuccessfully hunting along the way, but it's very hard to say. I've spent time in the past following lions, and it is quite incredible that if you go from track to track, because most of the time people drive along and just find the lions, but if you go to the place you saw them last night, which in this case would be in the middle of quarantine, which is just there by our camp and south of Vuyatela Dam, and you walk and you follow the tracks. I've done this before with trackers in the past, and you find kill after kill after kill in the wake of the pride. Often it's small animals such as impala, which form such an important buffer diet for the lions. And that always, it amazes me, because I think a lot of people overlook how much food a lion pride can actually eat. And I think people have worked it out that on average a pride, there we go, Seb, you can actually see the entire trail of the pride now, just over my shoulder. On that track there, you can see a number of tracks coming through. Can you see that, folks? I think you can. There they are. And so we're not far from Vuyatela Dam, as I said. I was just hoping to come back in and possibly what does happen, something I saw years ago. As I was saying, I followed lions many times, and you see all of the tracks and you find all the kills. And what often will happen is, especially when you get young males in the population, the young males will eat more than the females. And so once the females have made the kill once again, and the males who dominate the kill, the young males, I don't know if these males are quite at that age yet to be dominating those females, because they're not that big yet. But with the mountain pride that had 9 sub-adult males that were 3.5 years old, they just used to dominate everything. So if you ever tracked those lions, you could go and you'd end up finding like staggered males along the way before eventually finding the females, because the females would make the kill and then get so fed up with the males that they'd move off again and go hunt again. So you just keep tracking the lions and finding them staggered behind. So that's something I always like to do, is even though the lions have passed, go back in the direction they came from, and you never know, you might find one or two along the way that had a full belly and hence didn't require or feel the need to follow mum along the way. But in this case, all the tracks seem to be here and heading in that direction. Peter, in the savanna biome we get fire. Fire is a very integral part to the ecology here. Might not look like it now, but this very green grass is going to turn into very flammable material in the next couple of months or weeks, and fire is instrumental in the regeneration of the dynamics of what happens in the savannah. So all these properties in the Sabi sands, all the properties you'll find in the savannah, if they are human lives, they will have put in fire breaks, and the fire break is there to be used as a management tool for, in case, I think, should we check here, Seb? Let's just check this little pan. For in case you get a fire, say for example we're there up by Buffelshoek Cutline where we just came from, and there's a huge fire coming from the north. The fire break is probably about 500 meters or so wide. So it's not very, it can be wider in places, it depends really on the area. You can use the firebreak access road to put in what we call a backfire, to burn the fire back, so the huge fire coming from the north will burn out on the firebreak fire management fire that you put in. So it's very important from a safety point of view, because when these fires go, they go, and they can be very rampant. And back in the day, there has been a lot of human life lost, because we'll just plump ourselves in the middle of this environment, and when the fire comes, we haven't prepared ourselves for it. So you'll always find around, for example, we're coming up to Gallagher Lodge now, you'll find around lodges there'll always be a fire break area that they keep clear, so that the fire doesn't first of all burn the camp fence down or jump in and burn the buildings, which are invariably roofed with thatch. So fire is a very big part out here, and so it's important to have some form of method to fight that if need be, and you want to be prepared ahead of time. You don't want to suddenly make it up on the day, because when it happens, it's violent and it's powerful and it's dry. So we are going to go over to Taylor, who I believe has found some water.
Luckily for us, it's not a difficult thing to find at the moment. However, Vuyatela Dam is drying up pretty quickly. Now, shall we place some bets? This is not my favorite thing to not, well, and of course we're not betting for money, everybody. This is all just fun and games. As to when we think the water in Vuyatela Dam is going to completely dry up. Because theoretically, but you know the weather patterns out here are bizarre, we shouldn't be getting any more rain now until, well, I suppose the end of August, September. So we've got a couple of months to, of course, go before we get to there. So I think that this is probably going to dry up by, we're in March, I'm going to say the end of May. Let's go with the end of May. I think we've maybe got another month and a half, 2 months before it all disappears, especially if we're going to continue having these very, very hot days. Lots of thirsty animals, thirsty birds, be drinking it all up. Now, we've just seen Vuyatela Dam, which is, well, one of the, it can get quite big, not at the moment though. And Mina, you're wondering how many dams do we have on Djuma? Well, let's go through them. So Vuyatela Dam is one. Then we'll go down to the south, which is Twin Dams, Treehouse Dam. Then we've got to move a little bit further up here to Buffelshoek Dam. So those are the 4 dams, if I can remember correctly, that we have on the property. However, there are lots and lots of massive mud wallows out here, courtesy of the buffalo, courtesy of the elephants, and they also fill up and supply quite a large amount of water. But these areas are amazing. I mean, Buffelshoek Dam is so full at the moment. I'm on the slide down here, and that should hold water for quite some time. Just trying to think. Treehouse Dam is looking good. Again, it's pretty full, but it's going to dry out fairly quickly. I think Buffelshoek Dam is going to be the one that's going to hold water the longest, and Twin Dam also seems to hold it quite nicely. I've noticed as we've come through and into winter how it's normally just Buffelshoek that's got the last little bit, and then Twin Dams, and I suppose Treehouse Dam too, but they shrivel up to almost nothing, which is not great. But it does make finding animals a little bit easier, of course, because they are drawn to the leftover water. So yeah, now, just before we went live, some birds caught my attention from the distance. It sounded like there was some crested francolins alarming. So I think that's where Herbie's going now. So you can see Herbie's actually up in front and he's on the road. The reason why he's on the road now is he's just making sure for any tracks going up and down. This road here in particular seems to be used quite a lot by the animals, and it actually looks like there might be some lion tracks here, and hyena, or maybe just a really big hyena. It's wow. Hang on, look at this. That is a massive hyena track over there. It's really, really quite big. You can't see it very nicely, but it's quite a large track indeed. Right, it seems as though Steve might be tracking us. I'm not too sure, but he's looking at some kind of footprints, or at least driving after some.
No footprints at the moment, Taylor. Nope, we are just investigated another old potential hyena den site, and it is come up empty. There is nothing there at all. But Seb and I have been chatting now about what we could potentially do this morning. I know there's been a viewer talking to me on Twitter about a den site on the Triple M boundary drainage line. I'm not sure exactly where that might be, but I'll be in touch with Tristan, because apparently Tristan is the one who mentioned it. So I'll be in touch with him at some stage. I'm sure he's probably sleeping right now because he's on leave. But Seb and I are thinking that what a marvelous day it would be to maybe go into the area of Mr. Hosana. So seeing as the lions have definitely crossed to our northern boundary, we are not going to be following up on them any further, unless we happen to bump one just here, which would be marvelous. I am sure you would all enjoy that, so would I. But yeah, Scott is heading off onto the eastern side in search of that wonderful leopardess with her cub. So in this concession, or in the Sabi Sands, roads are built, Wisteria, by a grader generally, and then it is dragged with a tire invariably to keep it smooth. The roads need to follow a certain contour to make them acceptable, and they need to be in unsensitive areas. So the Sabi Sands is quite a nice area for that, because as the name Sabi Sands implies, there's a lot of sandy and granitic soil here. Not like up in the Mara, where you get very muddy black cotton soil. Very hard to build roads in those areas. When it's thick black cotton soil, you need to put in all sorts of gravel. You need to cap the road. So what I've noticed so far in the Djuma concession is all the roads are what we'd call all weather, which means that even if there's been some rainfall, you can drive on them. So it's not very hilly or bumpy in this place. So it'd be quite easy to have just driven a vehicle a few times along and been like, okay, cool, this is where we should go. And if I just pan to the left here, Seb, you can see there's a game path over here. So what I'm sure managers did back in the day is they just drove these game paths once or twice, because that is the path of least resistance. That is where the animals walk. And by driving this a few times, it gets more and more open and more used and more compacted. And then if need be, you could cut it with a sort of a brush cutter or a tractor pulled lawnmower. And then after that, you can grade it if need be. And what that facilitates then is the ability to find animals much easier, because if you use existing game paths, the animals would have used a good contour, a good line, and then you will invariably, by following these roads, the animals will follow them further. And I've noticed, you've all noticed how much time we spend finding and following leopards on the road, because they use the path of least resistance, as do we. So that is a quick and easy way of making a road, and in these areas, as I said, the soil is quite good for that, so it doesn't require too much in the way of gravel. But then whenever we come to sort of a drainage line, sort of a river crossing, so to speak, then they invariably need to do some sort of management interaction to prevent erosion from happening, because erosion is the single biggest issue behind road construction. You build this road, the vegetation is gone, and the water, if it lands on this road, has the ability to just channel and run very fast. So this bump in front of me here, you'll see we're about to go over it now. It is not a speed bump. It is designed to, as the water comes down this road, it's designed to slow the water down and take it off the side. And that is the best way to maintain roads. The bumps slow the water down, because if water picks up speed, it picks up soil and gravel, and you invariably end up with big erosion problems. So here's another bump in front of me, and here is the little, what we call a mitre drain, just on the left hand side. That drain there is where the rainfall will go off, and you can actually see there's quite a bit of sediment on the left hand side there. So that is to keep the rain and the water off the road, and they are very, very important management tools in the construction of roads. So we're continuing on. We'll go back over to Taylor and see what updates she has for you this morning.
We haven't got anything just yet, as we haven't been able to move into the area where a Tandiano cub is, but we'll get there eventually, maybe towards the end of drive at this rate. What I have found, though, as we've been marching along the road, is an area that has been used quite frequently. You might be able to see all the dung, just little bits of brown scattered all over these little plants. You can see there's a tiny little bit over there. See that? Delicious. If dung was nice and tasty. And then the bulk of it just down and around over here. Now, this is from a hippo. This is sort of a territorial marking point. Most likely the males have come through here and swished their tails around as they defecated, spraying it up and all over the show. Steve is so funny. Steve has asked me if I can see any fish bones. Sadly, no fish bones in this hippo's dung. Perhaps they're off the anchovies at this time. So yeah, so quite a nice spot. But again, when we see signs of game like this, especially the big animals, we know that it's a well-used area, and we must be careful because it is still a little bit cool. There could still be some hippos making use of all the green grass and staying out a little bit later than they normally would to graze. But let's carry on. We'll see what else we can find. Lots of little things. Just having a little squiz to see if I can find anything, but it's a little bit on the quiet side. Okay, we'll carry on. Now, Super Dude, as we march along the road here just to get up, we can't go into the thicket here. It's very, very dense. It's a Tamboti sort of forest, if you will. Lots of tall grass. So we don't want to be walking area where we haven't got any escape routes. And also, Darby's got a big aerial on the back of the backpack, and will probably get tangled up in all the leaves. But Super Dude, you've asked this morning about the Styx Pride and if they're still around. I haven't seen them for a long time. The last time I heard, they were actually on Arethusa, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if they're still down there. That was the last update I saw, and I think that was maybe 3 days ago. But we'll have a chat to some of the other guides and find out. Well, there was obviously an elephant here, as you can see. Some fresh dung. Ooh, look at all the beautiful flies that are sitting on it. Some marulas in there too. Which way were you going? I can't see too many tracks on the road, so perhaps this is from last night. And the other vehicles have already come driving over here and squashed its tracks. Cool. So, we're going to keep heading along Central Road now. That's where we are. Up towards Drakensberg, find those tracks in the middle of the road that Scott was talking about, that is marked, and then from there we can, well, start searching for leopards. But Steve is not searching for leopards, he's looking for lions, and I don't know where those tracks went to.
Okay, so as I said before, Taylor, I've stopped looking for the lions because they have crossed to our northern side, and we are back in the area where we had them last night. Just over there. I'm not going to go in and investigate because I know there was nothing left, unless you'd like me to rummage through the animal's stomach contents and tell you what it had been eating. There's not much to talk about there. But there was some tracks just on the road here, and it's possible that the Nkumas, that's the tracks of them as they were circling whatever, and I'm pretty sure it was an impala. All we saw was the feet. So it would have been really interesting to see the hunt happen last night, and that open area there that's known as quarantine, where the fireside chats used to be, that's where we often find impala. We used to have zebra there as well. The Nkuma Amber Eyes and one of the other females killed a zebra there a month and a bit ago. Right next to that is where we found the Nkuhumas on an impala. And you always think, like looking around us here, this thick, dense vegetation, this would be the ideal stalking environment for a lion to sneak up on an impala. And there they feel home and safe. And we often have them in that open area doing their thing and thinking that they are safe, but yet they were not. So that just goes to show you how terrifying it must be out here to be an animal, to be an antelope such as an impala, and why they're always on such high alert. So game movements and management of animals in the Kruger National Park and around, with regards to animal movements and translocations, yes, does happen. Ryan, you're asking about animal movements. I don't know of anything in the Sabi sands. I know that back in the day they introduced sable here, they introduced wildebeest here, animals that had declined a lot due to past management conditions that led to the vegetation getting a lot denser. The Kruger Park is a very natural system, and I'm pretty sure that they capture from the Kruger and they sell to other reserves. But I don't know if there's too much in the way of animals being moved into Kruger, because the system's quite natural as it is, and they do make a little bit of profit on the side for game sales and game capture. There's quite a big industry in South Africa. It's probably one of the second biggest, or maybe third biggest, if you look at ecotourism, hunting and game capture. Those three are probably the biggest industries in the sort of wildlife industry in South Africa. I'm not sure at the moment which one is which, or which one is 1, 2 and 3, but game capture definitely is a very, very big program, and that generally takes place in the winter months when the conditions are a bit drier. It's much easier to find and to catch the animals than now. And also this time of year there's a bit more stress if you want to capture animals, because there's lots of babies, and it's just too thick, the bush. So in winter they'll set up all sorts of types of capture methods. There's a lot of different ways of capturing them. It all depends on the... Okay, so the pride, I'm sorry to lose my train of thought, but the tracks come down from here and then they would have gone back up that way. So they came in last night. We were given a heads up. Louise was given a heads up by one of the rangers from Chitwa that they crossed into our property, and so we all jumped on a vehicle and came out, and probably 5 minutes too late we missed the action. But yes, game capture, it is a fascinating industry. I've been involved in small parts of it, and the value to the animal. So for example, if you want rhino or elephant, then there's huge value in that, and so there is much more technical sort of translocation issues. There'll be a helicopter, there'll be a vet, there'll be darts, there'll be trucks involved. But if you're capturing impala or giraffe, for example, then giraffe is different, but impala and small antelope, they'll just set up sort of tunnel like a funnel kind of thing, and then chase the animals into it as it gets smaller, and then tranquilize them and put them in trucks. But each animal has got its own strategy, and there is a lot of literature out there and a lot of management techniques behind each individual animal. So I hope that's answered your question, Ryan. But for cheetah, cheetah translocations is something that is quite widespread in South Africa. Everybody wants cheetah, and because their numbers are dropping, there's a lot of that going on. So I believe Scott has finally made it back onto the vehicle, so let's go back to him for an update.
Yes, back on the vehicle. Sadly, no updates. Very tricky to kind of limit yourself though to 10 minutes. I just thought, let me just do a little loop around and check the immediate area of where the tracks headed off the road while we wait for Herbie and Taylor to get into that area, and they'll be able to spend the rest of the morning slowly scouring through there. They may hear some alarm calls from animals which may help lead them to the kill. It's going to be very, very tricky for Herbie to follow the trail of the leopard for two reasons. Those tracks are from, I think, the night before last or sometime during the course of yesterday. We were so busy yesterday morning that we didn't get to have a proper look for those tracks. So they're not the freshest of tracks, and the vegetation is just simply so thick at the moment that even the little trails that the animals walk on off the roads are not going to be a good spot, or an easy spot rather, to actually see any tracks. So Herbie has got a good, tough task to test him back into the game here after his break. Robbie, you'd like to know if I've spotted the vampire terrapin? No, only in my nightmares, Robbie, last night. We were all having a big laugh around the dinner table last night about that whole scene. For any of you who are unaware of what happened yesterday on the Sunset Safari, we actually did an unscheduled broadcast. We invited on a whole extra audience to try and witness a miracle of nature, and that miracle was the fact that we thought there was a terrapin lodged into the wound of a buffalo. So the buffalo had a wound about this big on its back, and initially when I got into the sighting I thought, oh, that's a strange little, kind of like, it looked like a bit of a lump. And I looked on the monitor, tried to dust it off and lean forward and have a closer look. Wasn't too sure what was going on. And then Kirsty whispered through on the radio, it looks like there's a beetle on the wound. And I thought, no, hang on, that's not a beetle, that's a terrapin. This buffalo's just come out of a mud wallow. Terrapins are carnivorous, and there's this big gaping wound. On top of that, the wound had started to bleed more profusely whilst we were there, sitting and watching. So we thought there was a terrapin. Steph was also in final control. He also thought it was a terrapin. I'm not sure how many of you guys also thought it may have been a terrapin. But then as soon as we went live with the unscheduled broadcast, I'd repositioned the vehicle, and I immediately noticed, hang on, this doesn't look right. So I lifted up my binoculars, and true as Bob, it was just a flap of skin, not a terrapin. So a little bit embarrassing, but also hilarious at the same time. Okay. So I'm thinking of just kind of looping and swooping around this general area. I'm going to go and check the Buffelshoek waterhole now. It's not far away. Who knows what may have come down there for a drink in the course of the night. So I'm going to send you off to Taylor, who's busy looking at a tree. Please urge her to not spend too much time looking at this tree, because she should be looking for Tundi.
I'm being reprimanded now. We just thought we'd quickly stop, because after being away in South Africa for a very, very long time, I came back to many treats. And one of the cool things that I've discovered, and it's a trend all around the world at the moment, is craft gins. So for all of you who do enjoy the odd gin here and there, there's a really amazing one that they're making in South Africa. And I was quite surprised to see this little pod on the bottle as I was browsing in one of the safari wine shops in Hoedspruit. In fact, they have all sorts of wonderful things. And I was so confused by this. I thought, how on earth are they infusing this into gin now? But apparently, not only can you make a delicious tea from the bush willow pods, you can now also infuse it in barrels and actually make a type of gin. I think they infused it with bits of fynbos and other types of plants too. But how incredible is that we're using all our local products to produce, well, amazing things. And hopefully it goes worldwide. So I'm being told to move on. So I know, Scotty D, I'm sorry, we are marching. We passed Hyena Road. We're well past Hyena Road, and we're just going through the little dip now. And once we've gone through this dip, the next road is Drakensberg Road. So I'm pretty sure Scott's going to be happy about that. And I'm carrying my variable bush willow branch. See, the bush willows you can use for lots of different things, not just making tea and infusing gin, but you can also use them as a fly swatter. My preferred favorite fly swatter is actually from a guarri branch, but unfortunately I couldn't find one. So I thought I would just carry on and just grab this little piece and swat away. My goodness, look at this poor jackalberry. So I always talk about the jackalberries and how they become quite dwarfed. Here's a really good example of one that's struggling to grow thanks to the kudu, the impala, the elephants. So you can see it is sprouting an abnormal amount amount of red leaves. We know that these are the young leaves. You can see, look how soft they are compared to these ones. Look how crunchy they are. So, of course, that's the anthracyanin that they're producing as a chemical defense. But to try and keep them from being eaten and give the plant a chance. We'll keep on going now. Right. We may have to break into a jog to get to the area before Scott gets out perhaps a branch with thorns on and starts swatting us with it. Steve is driving around. The lions have moved off. I wonder what his plan is now.
Thank you, Taylor. I think we're also looking for a leopard now. We're thinking if we can maybe follow up on any tracks of Hosanna. We did come into this area yesterday where he was marauding the buffalo, but we didn't manage to get any fresh tracks on the road for him. So we thought maybe he was still in the block. We did our best to walk around and follow, but it was very difficult in that long grass to see anything. So thoughts are to maybe go back to where he'd left that duiker kill the night before. I'm not sure if he finished it, because we hadn't even really seen the duiker, but I don't know if he would have eaten it in one day. So the habitat here is ideal for leopard, and we have got open boundaries surrounding us. So Emma, there are at the moment hard to say how many leopards, but I think we've got the potential to see between 9 and 12 leopards, depending on how and when they move. Hey Seb, do you agree with that? Yeah, Seb agrees with me, which is a phenomenal number of leopards, but obviously we share them with the properties in and around us. The beauty of these conservation areas is that we've got landowners surrounding us and different agreements between different landowners, and the leopards and lions are free to come as they will. So at the moment we've likely got Hosanna, Tandian cub, and who knows where Tumbo might be. But he is always around, and as Scott said the other day, he's probably around more than we think. And Hukumuri has been lurking around. I'm just having a look on the road. I apologize for my lack of eye contact, but the leopard, a lot harder to track than a lion. And we're near the area where he had that duiker, so if he comes back in, some hyena tracks there. No doubt, as Seb said, if he did not tree that duiker again, that the very powerful nose of that spotted hyena will have rooted it out and it would be gone. But you never know. He might have come back and cached it up against the tree, as what leopards do, and he had it up initially and for some reason took it down to feed. Okay, so we're going to continue trying to make heads and tails of whatever tracks we might come across, and while we do so, I believe Scotty D has also found some water.
Here the Buffelshoek water works his wizardry on the camera. Well, we've driven to quite a low point right on the water's edge, so the signal's a bit shaky. Let me try and move forward a bit, see if that helps. It's going up and down. Let me try and perch us a little bit higher up. It may make a good difference. There we go, I'm told that's a little bit better. And we've ended up in a better spot. Senzo now just needs to re-level the camera because we parked on quite a slope. It'll be quite nice when technology gets to the point that we have a self-leveling camera. It'll be a game changer for what we do, because there's always that awkward moment as we get into position where the cameraman quickly has to unjiggle a screw at the bottom of the camera and tighten it up. But here we are, level as can be. And isn't that a beautiful, beautiful scene? I was hoping to find a pride of lion here lazing about, but no joy, it's just a couple of hippos doing just that. And it literally does look like it's only a couple of them. The other day I counted 6 or 7 here, so they're obviously coming and going and got lots of good options as to where they can spend time, and more importantly where they can find their 40-odd kilograms of grass that they feed on every night. Imagine having a 40-kilogram salad every day of your life. With no dressing. I guess all the grasses may taste slightly different, but I'm quite fortunate I'm not a kind of single vegetation type feeder. Very happy to be omnivorous compared to these guys. Beautiful. Hello, boy or girl? Probably a girl, actually, quite a small head. Jim, you would like to know what is the difference between a pan and a waterhole? Well, I guess there may be some kind of exact size dimensions that would cause something to be a pan or something else to be a waterhole. But ordinarily, pans are small and waterholes are big. But I guess it's all relative to the area that you're working in. In some areas with big dams, this would be considered a pan because it's certainly not the biggest dam on the planet, I guess. So yeah, no set rules, but yeah, as a general rule, a pan is something small and a dam is something, I guess also a pan's probably not man-made, it's just a kind of natural small pond, whereas a dam is something that is man-made. There's a number of dams here in the Sabi Sands. We've got 4 man-made dams here on Djuma. The clouds reflecting on this very still waters of very soothing scene. I feel like I should almost sit on the bonnet, cross my legs and meditate. But I'm not much of a meditator, so that wouldn't really make sense. It would all be a show. Magical. Now, I'm hoping that the sun does manage to break through the clouds. It's definitely going to make Taylor and Herbie's life easier trying to work out where Tundi's gone. It's kind of making an effort to there, but it is probably going to be a little while before the clouds break, if in fact they do. Okay, very good. I think we need to hustle along now, not too much happening here. And I'm thinking of just checking around, trying to cover some ground, and just leave Taylor and Herbie to do what they need to do and check some other areas while we're at. Oh, little grebe. Very cool little birds. Snacking away as it goes. They're quite pretty, but like most small birds, it's difficult to appreciate their beauty because unless you're very close to them, you can't really see what's actually going on there. But as it swims closer towards us, you can see that it's quite pretty. Got a bit of a rusty orange neck, a little white tip there on the base of its beak, or a little white bit on the base of its beak. And it appears to me like it's hunting little insects. You can see it's moving around with quite a lot of intent, and I don't think it's hunting vegetable matter. It certainly seems to be hunting something living. It'd be wonderful to actually be able to see what it is doing. But tricky from here. Certainly enjoying its breakfast, no two ways about that. Wonderful. Now there's a few other birds that I'd like to just take a look at and just have a moment to appreciate their hardships. 2 Egyptian geese on the water's edge over there, and shame these 2 have lost their entire brood of chicks. Last I remember there was 4 little chicks cruising about with them, but they clearly have been consumed by something. Not sure whether it was fish eagles that ate them. Fish eagles often harass Egyptian geese. Watch out there, Sans. And a whole host of other animals. Leopards will eat baby Egyptian geese. They can't fly for, I'm guessing, about 6 months of their life. Of course, they can hide quite well, but no joy. And I guess it's the same plight for a lot of animals out here. Christy, you would like to know what birds are calling in the background. Well, a whole host. The loud chattering we heard there was some francolins. I can hear some sparrows. Chip, chip. Some southern grey hornbills. Cape turtle dove off in the distance. Kukuru, kukuru. What else can I hear? It's mainly the southern grey hornbills, which is that soft whistling sound you might be able to hear. Tricky, you probably can't hear that. It's always difficult for us to know what exactly you can pick up over the mic, as opposed to what I can actually hear with my one left ear, which is not plugged with a earpiece. I don't have surround sound, I've only got one little speaker, or one little receiver rather. Okay, well, you could hear the dove at least. Very good. Let's carry on. I'm getting ants in my pants, and I'm keen to see what else has been traversing Djuma. It's quite important for us to try and cover as much ground as possible, because there's not any vehicles driving around this area at the moment. So if we don't, we can often miss useful information of tracks and animals that may be on the property. Very good. I'm going to be sending you back to Taylor McCurdy. I'm hoping she's getting closer to the scene of those last tracks that we had, and I wish you and her all the best of luck.
That's very kind of you, Scott. We're almost there, we promise. We are marching. I'm sweating. David is leaving a sweat trail as he walks. People are going to be confused. Whew. It's now humid with all this cloud cover. I kind of wish clouds just burn away and rather have the sun baking down on us. So, let me catch my breath because we just really did march up a hill. We found, well, Herbie found a guarri tree. Beautiful, isn't it? And it's got some lovely fruit on it, which is quite nice. Now, I kept saying to you how, oh, I'm so sad. I kept missing all the guarri fruit, but I didn't. I won. Here's one. Now, this one's not deep purple in colour, but it's still quite nice. And just to show you, there's not much flesh on there. Can you see that? Very juicy, that one. Big stone in the middle. Very, very good. You know what it actually reminds me of? It's got a little bit of a taste of like coconut water to it, because I don't think that's quite ripe just yet. A little bit bitter, so drying my mouth out just slightly, that'll be the tannins. But it really has got the taste of coconut water. That's quite nice, in fact. And then lots on here that haven't ripened yet, but it's because the flies are so bad this morning, we're having to do a double swat. And yes, that's what we'll continue doing. One on the face and one swatting the rest of the body, because they're after, well, I think I'll sweat this morning. Anyways, we're just coming up to Drakensberg Junction, so hopefully we're going to find that circle that Scott has left us and then get on the trail of Tundi, except that Steve has got an animal that flies really high in the sky.
Thank you very much, Taylor. Yes, I wonder if the flies can be attributed to the buffalo that moved through there yesterday. I've always noticed that the after a herd of buffalo has come through and the dung that they deposit, you always get a huge bloom of very annoying biting flies. We had some earlier, but we've moved out of the area of the buffalo, and so I can only assume that that is what is giving Taylor the discomfort. And here we have another animal that likes to follow lions, a white-back vulture. There's only one sitting in the tree here, and indeed, Taylor, they do like to fly very, very high in their search, their never-ending search for a dead animal. Can you see underneath the neck the throat pouch is completely relaxed. There's no meat in there at all. Just underneath the throat there's a little sort of clear area right in the middle of the screen. When a vulture is eaten, that pouch can just extend and be really, really bulgy. And it's quite an interesting or an important element to take into account. I was told many, many years ago, when you're looking for vultures and you find them in the tree, if they've got a pouch there and it is full, it means that they've already fed. But if there's a whole lot of them hanging around and they don't have pouches full, then you can almost be sure that the predator is still on the ground. But in this case, there is only one, and there seems to be a small nest in the tree just behind. I wonder if the vultures are going to choose that as the nest, or if that is indeed the nest for this individual. It's quite low down in the tree, which normally I would think would be a Wahlberg's nest. And vultures also tend to do it in right on the top of a very thorny scrub tree. Well, this one does not have, or is not alive, but it is the typical style of a vulture's nest. Wahlbergs also look very similar to that, so unless I see them sitting on there until that time, I will assume that it is not. And it's just a vulture that has missed any food and is waiting for that sun that is coming out of the clouds behind there to increase the surface temperature of the ground and to start causing thermal vents to lift up, to enable the vulture to fly to unbelievable heights. A very efficient way of moving around the African wilderness, letting the air thermals do all the work for you. Okay, marvelous stuff. Please don't forget to send through your comments at #SafariLive or follow us on the YouTube stream. We are on our way down towards a dam called Twin Dams. We have checked Treehouse Dam. We have checked the area Hosana had the Deka. Some very fresh hyena tracks there. So if anything was left in that drainage line, I am sure that very sensitive nose of the hyena has smelt it out. And while we continue on, we're going to go over to Mr. Scott Dyson for an update.
Yes, everyone, we have a Cape turtle dove stalking grass seeds through the undergrowth here. Very, very exciting stuff. And isn't their camouflage incredible? Not really. I was hoping to show you one of these birds. It was initially perched up on a branch. They're very pretty and we hear them calling very often. If I keep quiet for a second now, you'll hear kukuru, kukuru from all around us. And this is the bird that is responsible for making that specific call. It's got two different wonderful scents. Here's one that's perched itself up on the dead tree at about 11 o'clock there. Wunderbar. And it hopefully might start calling, actually. That would be first prize. It looks like it's thinking about starting. They kind of inflate their little gular flap below their beak. And yes, cough. Oh no, don't go anywhere. It looks like it also just shot down into undergrowth to start stalking some grass seeds. And as I was saying, there's two different kind of rhymes for their call. It's either work harder, or drink lager, drink lager. You can choose whichever one you prefer. I think at this stage of the morning where we are, work harder would probably be more socially acceptable. But some of you guys may be having a beer right now. So then the drink lager becomes more appropriate. Okie dokie. Well, I'm hoping Steve gets lucky working the kind of southern portions of Djuma. I'm working the northern portions of Djuma, so we've split up. And hopefully we are going to divide and conquer. But as I said a little bit earlier, there's really very few vehicles out and about at the moment. So we don't have much assistance in the way of making sure there's nothing exciting happening on Djuma. So like I said, it's important that we try and cover as much ground as possible. I mean, two examples that I can give you in the last week that I've been here is that one afternoon we got a report that there was a pack of wild dogs lying on the side of the main access road into our camp, and we didn't know about that in the morning, yet we were all out. And on my very first afternoon drive when I got back, there was a pride of lions about 200 meters from camp, and again, no one had any idea they were actually even on Djuma. So that's why it's important to cover ground, keep your eyes peeled on the roads, and make sure you don't miss out on any telltale signs of where the big cats could be. Just drove past some elephants. And Andrea, you would like to know if I've heard the updates on a female cheetah up in Kenya that we've spent quite a lot of time with. Her name is Malaika. And yes, I have heard a few updates saying that her two boys were last seen kind of calling desperately at a river crossing, looking for their mother. A week prior to that, roughly, their mother was seen mating with the 5 musketeers, a coalition of 5 cheetah, which tells me one main thing, that it's time for those 2 boys to leave home. So the fact that she's not with them anymore means we shouldn't panic. It is too soon to panic. And even though there's speculations that, yes, Malaika may have drowned or may have been eaten by a crocodile, where her 2 boys were seen on the Orok River, I think, like I say, it's just too soon to panic, and I think we should rather think happy thoughts of a pregnant Malaika giving birth in a few months' time. It would be terrible if she has died. She's an iconic cheetah of the Mara. Here are the Ellies. It's a little bit thick here, but I've got into the best spot that I can for now. They are clearly on the move, as you can see, and I'm guessing they could slowly be making their way down towards the Buffalo's Hook waterhole, where we have just come from. But they're feeding very slowly, so I'm guessing it'll still be quite a while till they get there. You might notice a small black bird flying around following them. A very clever bird, the fork-tailed drongo. Not only can they mimic many other birds' calls, but they follow the elephants around with the knowledge, there it goes again, that the elephants will chase up little insects that the drongo can then swoop down and catch on the wing. Whoop, probably caught one there. Clever bird. Now, quite a few of these elephants' temporal glands are leaking. You'll see a little, there we go, thanks Sens, you can see a little kind of trickle of moisture coming down from just behind the eye. And that's an emotional indicator. You can't necessarily be certain that they are tears of fear, if that makes sense, or anger. Maybe they're tears of joy. They certainly seem quite relaxed now, but it is important to remember that when a whole herd of them like this all have leaking temporal glands, they may have gone through some kind of stress. And if you're just aware of that, you can be ready to get yourself out of a dangerous situation, or just react however you need to stop any angry elephants giving you a hard time. But all is calm and peaceful now. Let's take another look, even though that was a great view of it eating. There's another one there's a little gap where we can have a look of it dust bathing. Looks like quite a big cow. And you can see she's kind of just ruffling up the earth with her trunk and then throwing it all over her body. I find it quite a strange thing that they do. I just don't see how it can really help the parasites. I mean, I guess it could feel quite nice having all of those dust particles getting thrown against their skin, but I don't see how it's going to rid themselves of any parasites, yet they do it very often. Caking themselves in mud, yes, that's a completely different story, because that will possibly suffocate the insects and also creates a kind of shell that they can then break off against trees once the mud's hardened. That's peeling off the parasites. Anna-Marie, you'd like to know if there are hormones in the temporal secretions. I don't have the faintest idea. Pheromones, possibly. I think that would be the right term. But yeah, I'm not too sure exactly how much other elephants will be able to read into the smell of that temporal gland. I'm not sure how pungent it is. I certainly haven't ever smelt it myself. But it would be interesting to know if another herd of elephants came across these ones, if they could smell that and pick up on exactly what's going on. I'm guessing they could. But whether there's actually hormones being secreted or not, I do not have the required knowledge on that matter to make a definitive answer. Very, very good. Okay, well, I think that's as good as it's going to get for now. And we've got some exciting news. Taylor McCurdy is getting into that area and they can hear a bird alarm calling. I'm hoping that bird can see the leopard.
So we are here. We might be able to hear the francolin. There's 2 francolins alarming now. One just here. And then another one just over here. And it's exactly where Scott had circled the leopard tracks, the last of the leopard tracks. So we don't know if this leopard is maybe moving around. So I'm going to whisper. I don't want to be talking too loudly. Let's see if we can get a view of the bird. It's important while we are here to try and keep as quiet as possible, because we don't want to startle Thandi. If the cub's nearby, we don't want to get a bad reaction from her. We don't want to get close to her either. We just want to see where she is so we can call Scott in. Obviously, when we're doing approaches on these animals, let's go a little bit further forward. If we go here, maybe I'll be able to see. You might be able to see David just on that lower branch. Can you see this tree that's angled at the side? The lowest branch, go right down to the height of the grass. There is a bird there. It's a crested francolin. We got it. Very, very upset. It's not sitting as high up on the top of the branches as it was a little bit earlier. So I don't know if it was on its way down and then it saw the leopard or something again. Again, it could be a leopard. We're hoping that it's going to be a leopard. It could have been a snake. It could have been a bird of prey that was maybe flying through here trying to flush something out. But it's all, I don't know, it just points to a leopard. We've got leopard tracks. Scott seems to think she might be on a kill somewhere. So we're going to keep looking around here. And we're just going to keep sneaking and slinking, trying to act like a leopard too, and not get spotted and not startle her. That's the most important thing, is we don't want to get a bad reaction from her. Could be anywhere here, but you can see the grass is really tall. Look at all this vegetation here. It's going to be very, 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 very difficult to try and spot a leopard, especially if she is cowering down, trying to keep away. You saw with Hosanna yesterday, the grass was only about knee deep, and he was completely disappearing. So there could be a leopard right in there, and I wouldn't have a clue. Even at this distance, I wouldn't be able to see her sitting inside there. But let's keep going. We're going to keep searching, we're going to keep our ears out, we're going to make sure that we've got our eyes peeled and checking under every shrub and every blade of grass. Let's go back across to Steve, and hopefully in the next little while we're going to find a leopard.
Thank you very much, Taylor. I wish you luck there with Thandi. We made our way down to our southern boundary and ended up having a chat with Peter from Nkoro. And it's quite incredible, ladies and gentlemen. I'm actually going to show you on the map on my phone, because they said they had Hosanna and Chitwa, and then he already crossed into Torchwood. So I'm going to show you here on my phone. I've got a new screen protector, folks, so I can now show you some wonderful things on here. It was looking very, very bad the other day. Okay, so let me just wait for the GPS to show where we are. It's not showing, but there we go. You can see, okay, let me just move that down. You can see where the dot is. that is where we are at the moment. And just a little bit further north of where that dot is where Hosanna was seen yesterday. Now, if I move the map across here, he was seen around here by Chitwa Dam, and then he crossed north into Torchwood. So the only assumption I can have is that he indeed followed the buffalo sort of east, and then he came down into Chitwa and then has gone back again. So it's unbelievable the amounts of space or area that this young cat can actually move in an evening, and yet from what we've seen, the roads that we've covered, we haven't seen his track. So it's possible that we've just missed it. He maybe moved a little bit further east from where we looked, but that is the way it works, and Hosanna will not be on the cards for this morning's drive, as sad as that might seem, but we will do our best to find something else. There are always trees and grasses and wonderful things out here to talk about. So for those of you who are watching this show, please send through some comments of what you would like us to focus on this morning. Considering that Hosanna has disappeared, we will still make our best to see what else we can find. Kirst, can you give me that name again, please? So we have got a camp. Our camp is fenced, and there is a two-strand electric fence around it to keep the elephants out, but there is nothing really in the way of keeping out leopards or hyena. We do have a small gate that we can close, so cats and leopards, such as leopards and lions and hyena, have been known to walk through camps. I have yet to see a cat walk through Djuma, where we are, but hyenas regularly come in looking for food, looking for our dustbins, but we take special care of that. But in these wilderness areas, unless you have a very, very good state-of-the-art game fence which surrounds Vuyatela Lodge and Galago Lodge, then you will get cats moving through. You often have, and we do have there, Nyala and bushbuck living in the camp. In many places I've worked at before, you have those animals living in the camp. They get quite relaxed, they feel quite safe. I've had lions killing Nyala next to my tent in the Salati Private Game Reserve. I've had a lion kill a zebra pretty close to my tent, close to in Mashatu, and it is quite something to hear, only meters away from where you're sleeping, the death throes of an animal as they get ripped limb to limb. Needless to say, I don't generally pop my nose out of the tent at those times, but just to lie there and listen, because it's impossible to fall asleep. It is quite something to experience. So poor animals, they think they are safe, and yet they get ferreted out from even those safe confinements. So yes, indeed, Peggy, we do get cats through camps. And talking about cats, I believe Taylor McCurdy is still walking through some long grass in search of that ever-elusive Tundi.
We are, and at the moment it is very important that we keep as quiet as possible because it's very thick vegetation, it's very tall grass. Tundi's got a cub, she could be on a kill, she's going to be very protective either way. So if we carry on talking while you're walking, you often are not going to hear what's going on around you, and it's why when we do bushwalk with guests, it's absolute silence. So we're just going to keep moving. We've got Herbie just pointed out though. We'll have a quick look and then we're going to carry on. I don't want to stay here and talk too much, but it looks like there's a baboon spider that's living here. Actually, look at the little trap that it's got on top. So I'm not going to move it around too much, but that's very cool. That's just silk underneath and then all grass and stuff on top, but it was open, so we shall leave it open. That's amazing. It always amazes me how perfect those burrows are. And they're sort of also all lined with silk all the way down. And those holes are quite deep too. What a really nice find. Very cool, but we're going to keep going because I really think that this leopard is somewhere in the area. Now Scott's on the move. I bet he's circling round and round like that vulture that Steve had earlier, waiting for us to find the leopard. Let's go see if he's very excited.
Yes, I'm in full scavenger mode, and I could think of nothing better than being able to literally fly above Taylor and Herbie, keeping an eye on them, making sure they're not getting distracted with too many baboon spider holes. Squawking if they do. So, I'm not too sure where to go. I've kind of quite thoroughly checked this northeastern corner, so I'm now heading south. I should probably get a hold of Steve quickly and see what his plans are. Steve? Because he was also heading in this direction from the southern boundary. Just checking what your plans are and where you're at. No, we're all good. He's headed into the western section of Djuma, so away from me, which will leave me to kind of more effectively, well, not effectively, but just to search the southeastern corner. Copy, thanks, good luck. Again, I must just reiterate that it's important that we check as much turf as possible, and there's no point in both of us driving down the same road. So good to hear that he's now obviously turned around and headed towards an area that hasn't yet been checked this morning. Some tracks of zebra going down the road. Haven't seen any zebra for quite a while. Just got another update on the radio. Copy that, thanks very much, Tax. He's found the lion, Taxon, one of the Djuma guides, just over the northern boundary, obviously not too far from where Steve had the tracks crossing. So, although that may be a little bit frustrating, of course, because we can't see them, at least they are still close to our northern boundary. They haven't moved too far, and maybe this evening they will pop back on. Who knows? Maybe something will give them a good reason to come on this morning. If a herd of buffalo walks onto Djuma in their general vicinity, they may well pick up the audio and follow them on through. I'm not sure if Steve mentioned we had such a cool time with those lion last night. We went out after dinner. Okay, Steve's already told you everything, but my highlight was just to reiterate the one lioness on two different occasions, the same lioness really gave some hyena that had come onto the scene an incredibly hard time. Chased on the two different occasions probably 100 meters or so at full tilt and got really close to the hyena on both occasions. Not something we see very often. And it was good fun to see the lions showing those hyena who was boss. Hello Stacy, you'd like to know how big is the Sabi Sands, and it is about 65,000 hectares. And the Kruger National Park, of which we are a part of in the Sabi Sands, is a long thin reserve that goes north-south. It's about 300 kilometers long, which is about 180 miles or so, and about 30 miles across on average, so it's long and thin. And we are somewhere over here, just a little blob, because my hand depicts about 3 million hectares, and we are only 65,000 hectares of that 3 million hectares, and Djuma is only 1,500 hectares, that big, of the 3 million. So we have a tiny little pinprick of the Kruger National Park that we are exploring. And this reserve, interestingly enough, wasn't always open to the Kruger National Park. They were neighbors, and in the, geez, I've forgotten the date actually. I've forgotten when it happened. But I think maybe in the 80s, they dropped the fences between the Kruger National Park and the Sabi Sands, making it one large flowing ecosystem, which is wonderful. Marvelous. I hope that helps, Stacy. We're going to send you guys across to Steve.
Thank you, Scotty. Yes, indeed. Always wonderful to know how large the area is and how it connects back into the greater Kruger. So I'm not sure what numbers Scott gave you there, but add that on to the Kruger Park's 2.2 million hectares, so 4.4 million acres. And then the Kruger's also extended into Mozambique and a little bit of Zimbabwe for another 1.4 something million hectares. So another 2 point something million acres. So that is an enormous area, and thankfully we don't have to drive at all in search of these animals. But if you can imagine the number of leopards that we see just here in this area of Djuma, you can imagine how many leopards there are in the entire Kruger National Park. It must be a mind-blowing number. And with that, how many lions? So we came all the way down and around onto the southern boundary. Unfortunately, as I said, Osana is gone for the morning. And we found the area where the lions came in yesterday or last night. And they're moving directly towards, obviously, where we had them. And right on their tails, the nosy hyena. The tracks are right there. I'm not quite sure why these hyena follow a pride like the Nkuhumas. Hopefully because they are very scared of them. But hopefully maybe just to pick up on whatever scraps get left behind. But what an existence that must be. Constantly trying to search for the food that others drop off of the dinner table. So we have obviously spent some time following and looking at ideas and stories in the sand, and Taylor has got something of interest with regards to animal behavior.
Animal behavior. I don't know what I'm going to describe about this poor dead buffalo. It's dead. But seeing as that we've been talking about lions lots, I thought it was kind of relevant. So, as we know, the lions love to eat buffalo, and it looks like they must have caught a youngster. You can see that horn there. Not very big. No big boss just yet. Still sort of curving out. I don't know where the other one is. And then, of course, all the remains down here on the ground, all the bits and pieces of bone. There's even a piece of hoof. Now, look at that. You can see it wasn't a very big buffalo at all. It's all very hard now. Oh, sorry, my fly swatter got in the way there. So, it doesn't look like much of the hyenas have been through. Maybe at some point, but typically a hyena would quite easily be able to eat this, no problem. Pretty amazing, though, how there's not much grass around here. All the bones are quite easy to see. Here's some of the jaw bones. You can also see I'm not going to pick up bones. I'm not a huge fan of picking up bones. I'll pick up horns and things like that. There we go. You can see a bone all bleached quite nicely. So this must be quite old. This must be maybe at least over a year old, probably even a little bit more, the way that it is bleached so nicely, maybe 2 or 3 years old, in fact. And I do remember Nkuhumas loving the spot in particular around here. Again, the animals come down and feed along the drainage lines during the droughts or during winter, and that's exactly where we are. So they probably would have spent quite a bit of time here grazing with whatever little grass was around, and it made for the perfect spot for the lions to take down a buffalo. And swatting David, you'll see a fly was bothering him. He was doing this. Now, it's quite thick now because it's obviously had lots of rain and all the trees, all the leaves and everything have started to grow. But Nina, you're wondering if lions prefer to hunt in the open plains or sort of wooded areas. They adapt really easily to their surroundings, so they can hunt pretty much in any conditions. Out in Namibia, they often hunt in the sand and on the dunes, which is pretty spectacular. But they've got that tawny colour that if they do sit nice and quite low to the ground and lay very still, an animal would probably struggle to pick it up. But out here, it makes it a little bit easier. From a little shrub they can hide behind, or to tall grass, they can do it all. They can hunt in most sort of areas. It's really amazing how adaptable lions are. And the same goes for leopards too. Leopards are highly adaptable. Cheetah, a little bit more restricted because, of course, they rely on speed. So they do need a little bit more of an open area so that they can, of course, reach their maximum speed to take down their prey. But again, cheetah can also sort of adapt to their environment, but not as well as leopards and lions. So we've come down to check this drainage line to see if there's anything up in the Timbwati trees or perhaps a leopard laying on the banks. Hopefully there will be, because we've had no luck just yet. But there's still a chance for us. Let's go see if Scott has found any more animals.
Good luck, Taylor. I've got faith in you and Herbie, and there's still lots of time, so let's hope we get on top of Tundi before the end of the morning safari. I found some male leopard tracks. We're on our eastern boundary here, and they sadly crossed east away from us. Could be Tingana, could have been Hosanna on his way out, hard to be certain. But a few more tracks. It really is remarkable how many tracks we are coming across at the moment. It's almost kind of making things confusing. We've got so many leopards moving around the property, because you battle to keep track of whose track belongs to who, from how many days ago. Was it, was it impressed? Not impressed, depressed, no. The mark was made on the ground, that wasn't pretty. But I just thought, let me continue checking our eastern boundary and see if there's no sign of Hosanna possibly coming back on. Sky, you'd like to know, due to the high density of leopards here, will that mean that there's a kind of higher death rates of them? Yes, I think definitely in areas where there's less competition from other leopards, especially male leopards who will kill leopard cubs that they are not the father of, there's going to be a lower mortality rates of them in terms of the species competition. So yeah, I think it is fair to say that statistically speaking, more leopards here will be killed by other leopards than in areas where there are less of them. The zebra tracks that I spoke of about half a mile, probably a mile now, back down the road, are still heading down here. They could probably be around the Chitwa waterhole, which is not far in that direction. Okie doke, so it sounds like we're all kind of just bumbling about trying to find you guys something interesting, so now it's Steve's turn.
It's my turn indeed. Thank you, Scotty D. We are still bumbling around just like Scott is. We've had some fresh elephant tracks and some fresh dung, but as of yet we have not managed to spot one of these big giants. Very nice to see an elephant this morning. But it's a wonderful morning. What I love about this is that this goes to show you how difficult it can be from time to time to see animals, and how blessed most of the viewers are out there to see the things that we often see on a day-to-day basis. It almost gets a little bit, what I'd say, blasé. Oh, another leopard sighting. Can you believe it? But that is the way the bush works. In the summer months, it is extremely difficult to find animals, and because they are spread out. There is water all over the place. Yeah. Long distance visual of a steenbok, Seb, just off on the right over there. See if we can just make out the ears. Now you'd think if you can spot a steenbok in the long grass, you'd be able to see large animals. There you can see it. Busy doing its normal feeding. Looks like a female with a lack of horns on the top there. Male and female have their own little territory and form what people believe to be monogamous pairs. And a very selective feeder with that very small mouth. Eating only the oh, it is a male. My mistake. There you can see the horns now. They were just blurred by the ears. Very secretive little animal, likes to bury its dung. And as I said, with that little mouth, feeds on the best and most succulent, juicy leaves of grass and sprouts of the trees and little forbs. And just like all the other larger ruminants, the steenbok is a ruminant with a 4-chambered stomach. So we'll feed at length, filling the belly, and then go find a nice quiet place to sit down and ruminate. So now when I talk about body size and selective behavior, and I can try and attribute this to a block of ice, the larger an animal is, the smaller or the lower its volume is to its surface area. I wonder if that makes sense to you. I will do a demonstration with my hand shortly afterwards. Mrs. Grumpy, yes, the steenbok has got beautiful little eyes. Okay, and has disappeared into the bush there. So I'll do a little demonstration for you now, if you will, when we talk about surface area to volume ratio. And if I take my hand, and I take my hand, so two hands, they've both got the same volume, I think you agree, but which one do you think has got the biggest surface area? This one. So which one is going to lose moisture quicker? This one. Which one is going to gain heat quicker? This one. Which one is going to lose heat quicker? This one. So essentially, when you look at animals, the larger the animals, or if you look at ice, you put a small cube of ice in water, or you put a large cube of ice in water. Which one's going to dissolve quicker? The smaller one. So volume ratio basically looks at an animal. So the smaller the animal is, their surface area is actually quite large for the volume, so they lose heat very, very quickly. When you look at a steenbok versus an elephant, yes, it looks enormous surface area, but the volume inside, the proportion is actually much larger than that of a steenbok. So they need very low quality vegetation, bulk, and that is the general rule. And then you look at smaller animals that they feed on a very high quality diet, have to be very territorial. Think of squirrels and their diet. They're very high in energy. Mice, all sorts of gerbils, they're very high in energy. They lose heat very quickly, so they can only afford to put in very good quality vegetation or food. The same as humans. An adult, you know, you can go for quite a while without any sustenance, but a baby needs sustenance regularly, lots of high nutrient milk at regular intervals. And as they get bigger, the volume and the surface area ratio changes, and so you get a less demand on high quality. I hope that answers the question. And when we look at animals like steenbok, they've got a very small mouth which allows them to select and move around and pick the most amazing plant parts. They can't be like the rhino or hippo that have got a mouth like this that just sort of mow the lawn. And yes, Jason, it is very interesting topic, surface area to volume ratio. Think about it with leaves as well. A normal leaf looks like that. And what do succulents look like? Cactus type plants, they have something like this. So that is all about moisture and heat conservation. So think about it in nature. Everything has a purpose, and I hope that sheds some light on body size and mouth parts, because it is very relevant. If an animal was really big and huge and had a small little mouth, it would take a hell of a long time for them to get enough nutrients in their body to sustain themselves, or enough bulk to sustain themselves. Okay, so from my talk on volume ratio, we're going to go over to Taylor, who I believe is also just bumbling about. We are, and sadly, very sad to say this, but we haven't found anything yet on the leopard. I don't know where she's gone. We're a bit uncertain. Herbie is also a bit boggled, but we've got a beautiful butterfly. It does look like one of the acrias, or maybe it could be a joker butterfly too. Again, I have completely forgotten all the South African butterflies out here, but it is beautiful nonetheless. How cute is that? Very, very pretty. Just sitting on a blade of grass, flapping its wings. I'm sure it will be out looking for maybe some flowers that it can feed on the nectar. And actually, just a little bit to the left of the... Oh, you've got it. No, it's there. That is a blue commelina. That'll be quite a nice treat for that butterfly. There we go. You should just pop on that flower and have a sip of that. We know that the blue commelinas too, as well, are quite a nutritional little flower. But that is so, so, so stunning. I cannot even explain to you how hot it is at the moment. I feel like we are not going to have to do any exercise today. And it might be a good afternoon for lots and lots of insects. Especially that we're seeing a few so early in the morning, which is quite nice. So that's a good sign. And I'm hoping to find some spiders catching flies and wrapping them in the silk. Now, I've obviously been walking right through the grass, and I know a lot of you always ask us, what do we put on our skin?
in order to protect ourselves from bugs and ticks. And Child of the Universe was actually wondering exactly that. Well, I keep looking at myself, and you can sort of see here on my pants all these tiny little black specks, and right up on my shirt. And I keep looking down going, please don't be ticks, but it's not, it's just little grass seeds. And so I normally take a general bug spray, like it's actually normally a mosquito repellent I find works quite well for ticks too. And I'll just spray my legs, spray up on my arms, and that normally does the trick. Now, you've seen some of the other guides, we wear gaiters, but unfortunately I left mine at home, which was very silly. So now I get all the grass seeds and all sorts of other prickly things getting stuck in my shoes. So I have to empty my shoes out quite often on the bushwalk, which is quite funny. And then, of course, we do lather ourselves up with lots of sunscreen. I'm quite allergic to grass. So after not walking in grass for a very, very long time, I keep breaking out in little welts all the way up my legs, and they're so itchy. All I want to do is go and cut a piece of the marula bark off and start rubbing it all over my legs, because remember, Herbie taught me that you can actually stop the itching. David's also feeling like that today too. But after a couple of walks through the bush, my skin normally gets quite used to it, and then the grass doesn't bother me too much. It's like I build up a tolerance to it. But goodness, I thought it was just me sneezing and being itchy all the time, but it seems as though there's a couple of us that are suffering from hay fever at the moment, with all the flowers that have come out, all the pollen, all the grass seeds, especially the grass seeds, in fact, and then being quite a bit of dust around now that the roads have all dried up. So we're all sneezing and sniffling, but we're not getting sick, don't worry, just the hay fever. We're going to keep going along this road. Herbie said he wants to just check Quarry Pan, and just to see if she's maybe come out again, and then we'll go back and probably cut through the same way and go meandering through the bush. Scott is still on a bumble. It seems as though the animals are hiding from everybody this morning. Scott, I hope you have better luck.
Thanks, Taylor, and sorry about your hay fever. I'm thankfully not being affected for now. If they do find any sign of Tundi at Quarry Pan, that'll mean good things, because it'll be very fresh tracks. And the reason why we know that is because that is a little pan where I took a short walk around a little bit earlier on. So no, there was no sign earlier. They really, like I said earlier on, they really do have their work cut out for them. It's an incredibly tricky block. We spent a lot of time trying to track and find her in there, and over the last few weeks she was camped out there for a while. So yeah, it's just a very, very tricky spot, and now with the extra long grass and extra cover for her to hide in, not even that she'd be hiding, she'll just be lying down and just watching Taylor and Herbie walk past, and as long as they don't lock eye contact with her or the cub, they'll just lie down and keep still. You almost need to spot them in order for them to stand up and accept that they've been seen. So who knows, maybe Taylor and Herbie have already walked past them a couple of times. That is a reality. Ravi, you'd like to know if there are any jackals on Djuma. And yes, there must be from time to time. I remember we don't get many black-backed jackals here in the Sabi Sands. We get the less common of the two, the side-striped jackal. And that's kind of throughout the Sabi Sands. I've noticed that trend. And there was a pair of them that lived on quarantine clearings for a while, then sandy patch. But on one fateful night, it was, I think, Brent that saw the quarantine male leopard catch and kill a jackal right there, right on our doorstep. I haven't seen a jackal in the last 3 months that I've been here, and I don't think anyone else has either. So not a great place for jackal. Obviously too much competition from the other apex predators that roam these parts, but we do see them from time to time. I'm hoping for a snake this morning, everyone. It's been a while. Well, I lie, it hasn't been a while since we've seen a snake, because some of you guys were lucky enough to see one yesterday with Steve. A bush snake. But they're animals that we don't see often, not nearly as often as I would like to see them. So that's my special wish for the morning. A rock python, to be specific. Or a puff adder, two fairly sluggish snakes that will hopefully allow us to actually film them before they slither off. Very wonderful. I'm going to continue on our plight to try to find you guys something interesting and send you across to Steve.
Thanks, Scotty. You want to see a snake, you say? I believe Seb was just telling me now that Faith spotted what she describes as a black slithering snake that this morning she saw as coming out of the bathroom and went underneath Conrad's little room at the DRC. So if you'd like to see a snake, that's probably the best bet for now, but by the description of it, without having seen it, sounds to me to be a black mamba, which will be fun. I can't wait to go back to camp myself and have a look. They got such a bad rap, the poor black mamba. I'm sure Conrad is sitting there in the FC right now going, what snake? Yeah, he just got back yesterday. Conrad just got back from leave yesterday, so it's nice to have him back. But he's apparently not in FC. He's probably doing some work on the technical side. It's nice to have him back. But he's probably trying to get, as Kirst says, he's probably trying to find the mamba somewhere. And hopefully he doesn't try and manhandle it. Waits for us to get back to assist in that manner. You know, I have no problem with snakes. They generally leave us alone. They're looking after rodents or looking for rodents and frogs and all sorts of things like that. And it is quite a cool day today, so the chances of seeing a snake slithering around, it's very uncommon. But after we have really warm days, normally across the roads here we have multitudes of snake trails as they zoom across the road. With the sunshine, their body warms up and they turn into little Ferraris and they move around at very high speed. That's a small raptor there. See if we can get it. He just went into that marula, Seb. I'll see if I can key you into it. There we go, towards the right of the tree. Straight in there. It looks to me, with my binoculars, like a lizard buzzard. All I saw in flight was the little white rump underneath the wings there on the tail. And if it turns around, you'll see he's got a very nice patch or stripe down the throat. Yes, definitely a lizard buzzard. Let him turn around. He's got a very nice call. Let's see if I can... There, you can hear him calling there. He's not doing the full call. No, definitely a lizard buzzard. Can you hear it, folks?
You still have a visual of it?
Yes, he's just jumped to the back there, Seb, the branch above that one. Can you see him flapping around?
Okay.
Just go straight in. Let's see if we can. There he goes. He's flying again. Wonderful to see. I haven't seen a lizard buzzard in some weeks now. And definitely one of the coolest raptor calls. Very easy to identify. And we always, because I was teaching students how to be guides and training guides, should I say. And it's one of those calls, you know, it's difficult for people to come into the bush and learn 120 or 90 different calls. They need some form of assistance, or what my friend Kia calls a donkey bridge, which allows them to sort of get over that and put some form of sort of animation or sound to it. And the lizard buzzard sounds like someone's taking a lizard by the tail and putting it up and swinging it in the air. So it goes... My mouth's a bit dry, I'm not doing it very well, but it sounds like he's lifting a lizard at the end, swinging it around, and that's always helps my students to remember the sound of the lizard buzzard. And I'll actually play it for you. He was only doing his little contact call there. He wasn't doing the proper loud territorial call. That is a dark shiny goshawk, my mistake. That was from yesterday. We had one of them on our way back on walk. We're coming to Impala Clearing now, I'll just get you the lizard buzzard. I'll actually show you a picture of it as well, because it is a beautiful bird, and it's probably one of the easiest small raptors to identify. You can see that moustachial stripe, or that throat stripe, black throat stripe, makes it very easy to identify. And I'm going to just touch the screen and play the sound. Hear that? The lizard in the air. Yes, Kirst? It sounds like a swinging lizard. Very easy call to identify. And they are very common in the area, and they will spend the majority of their time here. And as the name implies, they will feed on lizards, but snakes and insects as well. They're also known for taking small birds, and I'm sure they also have the ability to raid nests. One of the nice small accipiters that we get, and probably one of the most common. So it's very difficult to film raptors in the air, but I have, Cecilia, seen a number of raptors taking birds out of the sky. On I think my first walk or second walk with Rexon, we saw what I thought was a lizard buzzard take a spurfowl and hit it and then start flying off with it in one talon. We tried to follow up, but we never managed to find it. But I've also seen, I was driving along a road just like this, and a scrub hare moved out because it was disturbed by my vehicle, and a tawny eagle happened to be very watchful nearby. He zoomed down and grabbed the scrub hare straight in front of me. It was quite something to see. And I've seen something similar with a tawny, exactly the same. Franklin came out of the bush and it took it right in front of the car, which was quite special. I've also seen martial eagles killing monitor lizards. That happens quite often. I've seen them come down and land on the monitor. I've also just found them with the monitor and then fly off with it in its talon. Once upon a time, I also found a martial eagle on the carcass of a Sharp's Grijsbok, which is very similar in size to that of the Steenbok. But he was feeding it on the floor. I think it might have been just a little bit too heavy to carry. But we're going to continue on. We've just passed Impala clearing, heading off towards our eastern side. We're going to go over to Scott to see what tracks he might have for you.